Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3-Star Rift Clears. This is a series that has been on the back burner for a while, and I finally feel like it's time for us to return to form and finish out the Phi Rifts as well as the final iterations of Rifts that were added with the conclusion of the DLC. So today we will be looking at the first half of the Rifts that are located within the Phi difficulty. This is a free DLC difficulty that was made available about a month after the game's release. So if you have connected your game to Wi-Fi anytime after installing the software onto your Nintendo Switch, all you have to do is update the game and you will have access to these rifts. Today we will be focusing on the 5 rifts that are found on the left-hand side of this bracket, and then on Monday we will look at the rifts that are on the right-hand side. So if you're excited to see what these look like and how to get the clear rewards and what to expect here, go ahead and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss my daily uploads. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the Phi Rifts and show you what they mean. So the first rift that we are looking at is going to be the level 23 boost towering terror rift. And this is a pretty big slogfest of a fight. In order to get the access to Colossus as a playable character, you will need to clear through this rift once, and that will unlock him as a playable character within your roster. The 3 clear conditions here is you need to get through the trial. To get the 1 star, you need to get through with no team members incapacitated for the 2nd star, and then for that 3rd star, you need to defeat it in 4 minutes and 30 seconds or less. And that last one can be a little bit difficult because this is a very lengthy boss fight segment. As you'll see, we have Ultimo that we have to deal with. We've got a bunch of these Ultron Sentry bots that come in, and this elevator sequence takes a while in and of itself. But even after that, once you get up to the top of the tower, Ultimo, he's just a little bit more difficult in this iteration of the fight than he is even in the main storyline. So once we get up here to the top, you'll notice that we have the same objectives as we do as in the main story quest, where we need to fire these suppression cannons to decrypt his firewall and his code. We can get through the first phase very easily, as you would normally expect. But the second phase of this fight, it actually, for whatever reason, doesn't give you enough time to completely deplete him down to that first bar, or that second bar. And it's a little bit confusing to me. I don't know if it's bugged, I don't know if it's intentionally designed that way, but that throws away one full cycle of these fights in order to get them taken down. And I don't think that it's based off of your teammates not being able to help out with this. I honestly think that it's just due to the nature of the fight itself. Now, a couple of suggestions that I have for this particular rift is, if you have access to Thanos Infinite, use him because you can gravitate all of these Ultron Sentry bots into the center with his gravity surge ability. If you don't have access to Thanos Infinite, which you may not, he's a very difficult character to get your hands on, and you can't get him at all if you haven't purchased the DLC. The next character that I would recommend, which is a little easier to attain, you still need to have purchased the DLC for this character, but Cable, he has a gravity type effect that you can use to draw some of your characters in, and I don't think that there's really anyone in the base roster that has an ability that has a gravity component to it. So those are really the best options for this rift in terms of really grinding it out a lot quicker. Of course, if you have characters that have large areas of effect or other attacks that they can throw out, they may very well be suited for this fight. But as you can see, this gravity surge from Thanos Infinite, as well as any gravity ability that you could set up with Cable, is ideal for getting your teammate to hone in on all of the opponents in the same location relatively at the same time. But this is the last little cycle of the decryption, and we actually just managed to squeak it out I was concerned that it might be more akin to that second wave that we saw, and we would need to run it one more time, but we just barely get there before his stagger bar replenishes, so that is always a good thing to see in regards to when you're tracking these events or trying to get them taken down. The second one that we need to talk about is, of course, going to be a little bit more difficult. This is the level 42 Extreme Trial Opposing Forces. And in this trial, your extreme attacks deal more damage, so you don't want to waste a whole lot of time in using your abilities, heavy attacks, other things, though you can deal some trivial damage to that. As you'll see, I had forgotten that aspect, and so I do run out a couple of my other attacks in the midst of this fight, but your extreme gauges also refill a lot faster, so it's a lot easier to manage your extreme attacks and make sure that you can layer them in. In order to get the full clear here, you need to, of course, get through the trial. You need to also do so with no team members incapacitated, and you need to finish in 1 minute and 40 seconds or less. That is pretty easy, providing that you have a decently high-level team. This team that I have is not quite max level, but it is a very high-efficiency team, so their extreme attacks are dealing even more damage just based off of their overall level cap. And you see here, as we continue to layer into Magneto, our extreme gauges for every member of our team is just replenishing very, very quickly. And since we don't have to worry about conserving our extreme attack for anything later than this, as soon as you have them, let them rip. Just go ahead and detonate them and make sure that you can get out of this fight as quickly as you can to claim those full rewards. The third section of the rift that we are going to look at is the level 63 Rush Colossal Conflict Rift, and this one is a little bit of a slogfest, as it does have a full 5 minutes that you have to play through. But even though you have to play through the full 5 minutes, that doesn't mean that it's impossible to do. This one I didn't get the full clear conditions, mainly because of the way that I chose to play it. You do see that we have the main objective of defeating 50 combatants, 50 enemies, including Colossus, though there are other mini-boss enemies that will pop in. Colossus comes in a little bit closer to that 50 mark, so it makes things a little bit easier to manage. So the first clear that you're aiming for is getting the trial clear, of course, making sure that you meet those minimum requirements that are over there on the right side of the screen. The second criteria is dealing 150,000 damage or more with synergy attacks specifically, and the reason I didn't get this is because I was focusing on using my abilities with Thanos Infinite, and that leads to, you know, not being able to contribute really anything to synergy attacks because Thanos Infinite is incapable of synergizing with other members of your team. So that made things a little bit scary on this initial run-through, though I will double back and make sure that I get that clear condition as well. The last criteria is defeating 75 enemies or more, and initially I thought that the clear condition over on the right-hand side was going to be a setback to that, mainly due to the fact that other items that we've seen in the past continue to let that counter toggle over or toggle up until you have taken down the main boss that's listed. But in this case, it does have you play through the full 5-minute timer, so as long as you have a relatively high-level team, you're not going to have too many troubles in taking out these opponents. Right now you're seeing that Kingpin has dropped into the arena, and he can be a little bit annoying to take down. I was trying to use one of those Sentinel cores to take down against him, but it didn't work out in my favor, unfortunately. But I'm not too concerned because I do have a very high-level team and can make sure that I get through the remainder of the opponents in damage here. Honestly, to make sure that you can get this in the one fell swoop and make sure that you meet all of the clear conditions that we're looking for, you just want to come in with a decently high-level team. Again, this is a level 63 Rift, so you don't have to have the highest level team in the game or the highest level team that you can possibly achieve, but it does help if you have a higher level team with maxed out synergies, which you can do at, I believe it's around level 100 that you can max out the synergies for the different members of your team, and then just know what synergies you have with the character you're using that deal the most amount of damage. Personally, with this team setup, if I were to focus more on doing those synergy attacks, I would be focusing a lot on the Vibranium Slash from Black Panther, as well as the Adamantium Uppercut from Wolverine, because those deal massive amounts of damage and synergize very well, and they have a quick startup as well that doubles with the large amount of damage that it deals. As soon as Colossus is spawned in here, I just go ahead and detonate my extreme attacks. You really don't want to do that if you are using team members that have long startup animations, especially if you are unable to stagger out the character that you're aiming to take down. But because I have Thanos Infinite, who not only immediately staggers out the opponents upon detonating his extreme attack, but also has the ability to pause their cooldown on their recharge, we're really in a good shape in terms of taking out the opponents here. We're down into the last 45 seconds or so of this fight, so we'll just make sure that we continue to rinse and repeat. At this point, we're really just seeing how many opponents we can take out. Casual record, nothing more. And we'll easily surpass the total of 100 as we continue layering into these different grunts that spawn in. 30 seconds on the clock is where the timer starts to go pink to indicate to you that if you don't have the clear conditions you need, you really need to start thinking about that or double down to make sure that you get to that area. But all things considered, it goes very smoothly for us, and I don't really have a whole lot more to say about this rift in particular, as it makes a lot of sense as long as you go in knowing what to expect with it. So as our timer expires here, you'll see that again I'm missing the one clear condition, but it's not going to be that difficult for me to get. I'll just double back around and make sure that I prioritize using my synergy attacks, because as an afterthought, you do not have to do these quests in order. You can't, or those clear conditions in order and all in one single run. You can kind of do them however you feel you need to. The next section that we need to look at is going to be the level 72 boss Rave, or boss wave rift, and that involves taking down 4 different bosses back to back to back to back. And the first boss that spawns in right off the top is Spider Gwen. She, I think, is the most annoying of the bosses in this particular run because she does zip around a lot. She's highly mobile and tends to just dance around you, but that's what she's known for, is web swinging, villain butt kicking, and ballet, as well as being a drummer. But as soon as you have her taken down, we will have Claw spawn in, which is fitting because this is the arena that you typically confront Claw in, mainly because it's a nice area where his attacks can reverberate off of the walls, but he's kind of a glass cannon type boss, so you can take him down pretty easily. You saw there that we now officially have our Black Panther at level 300, so I will be swapping the skill boost ISO off of him and onto another character to accelerate their journey up to that level 300 as well. And as an afterthought, while I'm waiting for some of these other items to figure out, we will be doing a character tier list by character as I get them to level 300 and can kind of break down their abilities and analyze each character at their best. So again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those videos as they come out. The third character you saw briefly was Venom, and it is the Venom that has the Electro Enhancement, so just be aware that that is going to cause some trouble for you because he tends to hit a little bit harder and can stagger out members of your team if you're not careful. The final boss that spawns in is Corvus Glaive, and it is Corvus Glaive with the Reality Stone enhancement. As you see here, he has completely disappeared from the battlefield. He has his glaive attacks with different elemental aspects that are now dropping down from the ceiling and causing all sorts of mayhem. So you really want to try and focus in on him after that attack finishes up before his cooldown resets and he does it again, because that just draws out the fight a lot longer than it needs to be. The full clear conditions here is getting the trial cleared, making sure that you get through it with 1 or fewer teammate incapacitations, and finishing the rift in 5 minutes and 30 seconds or less. And as long as you've got a strong enough team that you're familiar with using, you're going to get through this no problem. This brings us to the final rift of today's video, which is the level 85 solo rift that comprises Revenge of the Titan. Now, to be honest, I don't know if you have to have Thanos unlocked for this. I'd imagine that you probably do, because why else would they give you access to it? The way that this works is you get to take on the final boss fight against Thane all by yourself. And yes, he does have a limited health pool based off of that fight, but he hits very hard, and you really don't want to get caught up in the amber attack that he has, because you've got to mash like a madman in order to get out of that. You can't just sit around and wait for it to finish out. Honestly, it might even be one of those things that you may just want to consider resetting the run if you get hit in that amber early enough in the fight, because it's a very long mashing sequence that you have to go through, as well as, you know, being very susceptible to taking damage during that stage. You might need to, if not definitely need to, run through this a couple of different times to make sure that you get a feel for what all of Thane's abilities are, because he has a couple of attacks that he tends to gravitate to. He has these portals from the Space Stone that will zip you into him if you end up stepping on them. He will throw out these gravity surges, as well as the large purple laser beam attack that you see. Thanos doesn't have access to it in this iteration, and even Thanos Infinite has a very different version of that attack, because it's not the Power Stone, but rather the Mind Stone, as it staggers out different opponents there. As soon as he gets down to this phase, he activates the Reality Stone, and that will allow a couple of reality clones to periodically jump into this fight, which is troubling, because a lot of them like to spam that death touch, and though it does not take you out instantly, thankfully, it does deal a large amount of damage to you if you end up getting caught in it, especially if 3 or 4 of them tend to activate that attack all at the same time. In order to get the full clear conditions here, and I'll admit I'm falling short in just one category, you've got to get through it once and you've got to finish it in 5 minutes and 30 seconds or less, but I'm going to double back through probably after I've leveled up Thanos a little bit to make him a bit stronger, in order to get that last clear condition, which is dealing 300,000 attack damage or more with abilities. Honestly, I was really concerned about just getting through this rather than getting through with that clear condition, because Thane hits hard, and I don't really like this fight, because typically I don't have to do it by myself, but sometimes I do, and in this case it just makes things a lot more difficult than it absolutely needs to be. So the honest-to-goodness thing that I've seen in terms of just getting through this fight is you'll want to layer into him with a couple of basic attacks, cancel out the animation into a dash attack, and anytime you have those reality clones that have popped in, you'll just want to dash attack into them immediately, because one use of your dash attack will completely take out a fully healthy Thane clone. And that attack is new to him. You just saw that there's that set of yellow amber spikes that go down across the ground. If you get caught up in that, you're honestly as good as dead, so don't. It's not a fun attack to get caught up in, because that does encase you in the amber, just like the other ones do. You see there, we've dashed into Thane, and you'd think that the fight's over, but if you've played through the main story quest, you know that it's not. And if you've speedran this game like I'd have, and casually going to drop here that I currently hold the New Game Plus world record in under an hour and 40 minutes, which is a very impressive time, especially for the New Game Plus difficulty. But you'll see here that as soon as you have taken him down out once, he will revive back up with about 20% of his overall health that you'll then need to fight through him again. And at this point, I'm panicking. I've reached full panic mode, because as you can see, my health is waning quite a bit. And so I'm walking around trying to make sure I can dash into him, do some more attacks, some more damage, and get him taken down. And the other thing that tends to be a little bit annoying is he has that Space Stone ability that allows him to warp around the battlefield. And he's intangible during that attack sequence, so don't even try leaning into him. And that's where I'm talking about you'd want to be very careful with the different Thane clones, because you've got 3 or 4 of them that like to spam that Death Touch attack. We ended up taking 2 of them out in one fell swoop, and with one final dash attack, or it's actually his heavy attack that it gives you that dashing animation. But you'll see that we have him taken down. You'll also want to keep a pendant eye on your roll, or your animation where you can dodge out of the way of the attacks that he's throwing at you, especially for attacks like this beam or the ones where he pounds down onto the ground with the Power Stone. But from a distance, we end up taking out Thane with our main energy beam attack, and that is going to do it for today's video. Again, if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, please feel free to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more daily content, and I'll see you with another episode of the Hardcore Minecraft Guide coming your way tomorrow. Thanks again for watching, and you have a great rest of your day.